feel that it's the same thing like in class. So the learning objective of this lecture is to explain how measurement issues can lead to information bias. It's a short one. Define and distinguish validity and reliability, identify types and way to assess them, and interpret reliability estimate and validity result. So this is, again, this is the map that I use always, that we are here conducting epidemiological study. This is actually the main goal of the study, is to strengthen and enhance your ability to design and conduct epidemiological study. Of course, you are not conducting it now, but ultimately you plan to conduct a study. So you choose the best design that is aligned with your research question, and you always think about how can I do the best given my resources. Always think about feasibility versus validity, but you always want to build an internally valid design. Who are you addressing this study to? Who's your population? And thinking about defining your population in terms of inclusion, exclusion criteria, how sampling, how represented it is, the sample size, how many, and for case control, who are your cases, who are your controls, and the cohort, how you will build the cohort, who's your cohort, who's in the cohort, right? So this is all in the population selection. Ultimately, you'd like to collect information, and the information you want to collect as accurate as possible. So what information you want to collect? Of course, you have to ask yourself how you're going to collect the information, what information you want to collect, right? What are your concepts? What's your exposure? What's your outcome? Where you're going to get this information from? And you have to then ask yourself, is the information correct? Because correct information will lead to correct a result, right? And as you are thinking about information quality, you have to think about validity and reliability of the measure, ensuring that they are valid and reliable. So you worry about measurement error, because ultimately, again, other than describing certain characteristic, you want to measure an association. So does A cause B? So A is a measure, B is a measure, and any mismeasurement of any one of them might lead to what? Might lead to an association that's not accurate. So the magnitude or the direction of the association might change, might be biased, because the measurement is actually biased. So the way you are collecting the information is biased. So let's discuss. So what are sources of error in measuring a factor, in measuring exposure, and measuring as an outcome? What could be sources of error?
Self-reported scales.
Okay, self-reported. So the way people are answering the question, right? And okay.
Yeah,
So
like
what happens with self-reported, for instance? Can you give me a particular example about what would happen with a self-reported scale? What is the error?
like if I ask someone, do you have sleep disturbances? He told me yes or not. Or do you have hypertension? He might tell me no. At the same time, he haven't checked his hypertension in a medical doctor.
Okay, so it's about what? It's about how much they know about it, or is it because the question, or because the people are not comfortable? What is it? Where the error comes from?
Sometimes if it's the contract is not defined properly, so they might not understand it all the same way.
Okay,
So
so the
let's say
error
if I'm asking
okay,
this,
great. So the error can come from the way it's operationalized. I mean, the way you have explained the indicator, the question maybe is not good, maybe, right? What would be another source of error in measuring a factor?
The time when you ask about it or when you measure the factor.
Okay, so let's call it the interview context. So it could be the interview context, where you're doing the interview, who's doing the interview, the time of the interview, if there is a third party interview. So this could also lead to to some error. And what
Yes.
what other things can lead to
Instrumental error.
Yes, instrumental. So it looks so if your scale is not a good scale and it's not an accurate scale, this could lead to measurement error. So the scale, the people who are asking the question, the recall period, the way you are the way you are answering. So there are different factors that lead to error in asking the question. Okay, error in information. So most importantly is the error in information, right? Sorry. Okay. Sorry. It's just too. Okay, so what we want is, so in order to have an internally valid questionnaire, an internally valid study in general, we would like to enhance the information quality, and this happens at different levels. The first level is actually to define the variable and concept being measured. That's why in your design, the first thing when you put what are your exposure and what are your outcome is to clearly define what do you mean by let's say, what do you mean by social network? So you want to look at social network and cognitive decline among older adults. So what do you mean by social network? Or what do you mean by social engagement? What do you mean by social cohesion? What do you mean by, for instance, physical health affect cognitive health? So what is physical health? What are the parameters of physical health? So when you define clearly your variable, you would enhance information quality, because then you will start thinking about how I will collect the information. What's the best source of my information? Do I need a scale? Can I find the information in a already in a data set or in a health record? Do I need to have biological examination? So what's the source of my information? And then maybe you only have to do a questionnaire because no other source is available to you to get the information. So then you have always to look at all these sources of data and try to understand what are compromises that you're making and what are some of the errors associated with these sources of data. But you have to understand them and know that some of the sources are really the best sources, but yet they are not reachable and they are not feasible. And then you assess the possible measurement error that can result from all different modalities. So how good is the scale that you have used? How clear is it? Are you and then you try to look at how well the people are trained, or the person training, or the people who are being trained. And most importantly, when you have a measurement tool, is to examine and assess its reliability and validity. So how dependable and how accurate is this measurement? So measurement tool that we use to are a group, it could be a questionnaire, it could be a scale, it could be few questions. So when we talk about measurement tool and scale, it doesn't have to be like a scale that's adapted in the literature like Edinburgh scale, PTSD scale. It could be a collection of variable, a collection of questions that would elicit information about exposure, outcome, and covariate. Some of the information, of course, is very simple and can be straightforward, like age, number of years of education, employed or not employed, though this could be a little bit complicated if we think about retirement, for instance. And some may be more complex than others. So we can think about age as a very simple term, computer literacy as a little bit more complex, because it needs, we cannot just ask, are you computer literate? What is computer literacy? And then we have to think about when I define my concept. So are these concepts measured by one question, or they need actually more than one question in a questionnaire or in a scale? The factual questions are easier, but the most important or more challenging questions or concepts are those that relate to social and psychological issues. So in this example, I put in the slide, well-being, physical well-being, mental well-being. This is something that I'd like to assess effect of war on mental well-being. What does mental well-being mean? Stress, depression, social cohesion. So these are more complex issues, and they tend to be more abstract in nature. So, and these are very difficult, and that's why we have always to start by operationalizing the concept. Operationalizing the concept meaning making it more measurable. So I start defining the concept. So what do I mean by mental well-being? And then I would, so it could be positive or negative. It could be mental well-being, could be how you cope, what are your emotional, I don't know. So mostly, for instance, how you cope, or negative if you're depressed, if you are anxious, if you are distressed, psychologically distressed, and then you operationalize it. It means that you form a group of indicators, or to form a scale that would represent this concept. And we call this concept as a latent construct. Latent construct means it's a concept, but it's abstract because it's not actually measurable. You don't take a measure and then you measure depression. You have to have several indicators, and then you take all these indicators to come up with people who are depressed or not depressed. So the scale that measure these latent constructs are very complex and need really to be assessed for validity and reliability, at least to be able to say that the information I'm collecting is accurate. And if it's not 100% accurate, how much error I'm making. So I have to also recognize what kind of error I'm doing, and the error I'm doing. What happens if I do an error in measuring depression among a group of patients? What could happen? What kind of error might result?
I will either overestimate or underestimate
So this is in terms of the
prevalence.
conclusion, right? The association. But what happened to those people in terms of this specific measure? If I'm measuring depression on a group of people, and the measure is not like 100% accurate, what happened?
You get a measurement bias. So
Maybe some people
So,
when
and
they
what happens? Okay, so what is the consequent of a measurement bias? What's the consequent of an information bias?
some people
depends
maybe
if it's differential or not. Let's say if it's differential,
Yes.
then it would over or underestimate. If it's
Yes,
not,
yes.
so it might lead
Okay,
to the
so
not.
we agree, we all agree that the association would be biased, right? But why it would be biased? What happened when I am not collecting accurate information? Somebody said differential, non-differential.
Yes, that's what I was saying. If it was differential, so then let's say
Differential what? But differential what? What do we call? Misclassification. So
misclassification.
so we have information bias that would lead to misclassification. So this misclassification, it means that I'm classifying somebody as depressed while not depressed, or vice versa. I'm classifying a non-depressed as depressed because my measurement is not accurate, right? And of course, this misclassification can be differential, non-differential, meaning that I might misclassify everyone at the same rate, irrespective of particular outcome or particular exposure, or I can misclassify a particular people having the outcome more than other people, which is differential misclassification. Irrespective, the association is going to be biased. So again, a measurement tool that's not accurate, a measurement tool that has information bias might lead also not only to false or biased association, but إذا عم نحكي how the process is, it affects the classification based on misclassification of exposure or outcome, because we are talking about A causing B, so it could be a misclassification of A or misclassification of B that could lead ultimately to biased estimate. So, and this is ultimately EPI study. We want accurate, precise estimate, and that's why measurement is a key factor in epidemiological study. So what kind of measurement we are talking about? I just talked about it. So some construct or concept are very much observed or latent, and it's good to start talking about this latent concept, because many of the constructs that we work with are latent, specifically when we talk about, as I said before, social and psychological factors affecting health status. So when we say observe, it means I have specific measures, blood pressure, hypertension. Is it observed or latent?
I think
So-
observe.
No, they're observed.
Observe, because I can
Because
take
it
a
can be
measurement,
measured.
right? Okay, I can take the sphygmomanometer, measure blood pressure, systolic, diastolic, and based on a cutoff, classify people into hypertensive or non-hypertensive, right? Right? But if I'm talking about something else like food insecurity, I'm talking about measures such as satisfaction with academic continuity plan at AUB. So what is this construct? So can it be measured directly? But just
No.
by measure,
No.
are you satisfied? What does it mean satisfied? So you have to break down these type of كل شيء psychosocial needs to be broken down into dimension, into several indicators per construct, and this is where scales come from. Stress. So you always find stress scales, depression scales, social cohesion scale, social support scale. What else? Burnout scale. That's a very common exhaustion scale, and like a mental stress among medical doctor. So it requires multiple indicators per construct. While, for instance, hypertension, I can ask, have you ever been diagnosed by your doctor that you have hypertension? Especially if I want diagnosed. Are you taking medication for hypertension? And then as a data collector, I can take the blood pressure measurement. So I have a self-reported question. I have, again, self-reported, but if they're taking medication, which is observable, right? It is observable. Yes, you tell me, what would be an error in this kind of question? Are you taking medication?
It maybe doesn't capture the full picture of
Okay, others. And I go to an older person, I say, are you taking medication? It's easy to say yes or no, right?
Yeah.
But again, it might be, and unless if I want, really interested in the medication for hypertension, I need maybe to ask the person, can you show me the medication that you are taking, for instance? But more or less they are good. But still we can think about under-reporting, right? Under-reporting or over-reporting when we talk about self-report. But still, it does capture. It's really taking medication or not taking medication. It does not measure something else. So utilization of medication, the intake of medication, and then I'm taking the blood pressure. So do I have any concern when I take the blood pressure measurement?
Yes, if
I mean, not
if
from the tool
machine I'm
itself,
using
but
is
if the
calibrated.
person.
Okay. أنا I'm not able to see you. Okay. So who just spoke? So what about the blood pressure? So sphygmomanometer. So do you have any concern?
Yes, the machine calibration.
Of course, 100%. So you have to have a machine that's calibrated. As epidemiologists, you do study that are population-based study. This means that you will be using the same tools for everyone. And you have to report which tools you are using. And you have to calibrate the tool. And let me give you, I don't know if I ever gave you this example of, I think I gave you this one, the study on malocclusion among school children, where the data collector were calibrated against an attending orthodontist to make sure that when they go and measure the malocclusion, they are measuring it correctly. So this is an observed measure, right? But still, I worry about measurement error. All right. So So this is with respect to, so what I was saying, why I ask you this question, because even measures that are, or concepts that are observable, I should worry about measurement error, because the tool might not be reliable. Let's say when you use, Maggie would know the tools to measure weight, or any other anthropometric measure, there are subject to some measurement error, right? A scale that always overestimate your weight, right? So it means that it will always give you a higher weight. So again, it will also misclassify you. So that's why also the tool used for observational are as important. So therefore, so this is a latent construct, how we envisage it. So this is from, I think, a slide from Dr. Ghandour. I have another slide also from Dr. Ghandour. Maggie will be taking more validity and reliability in a full course called psychometric and latent class analysis. So latent construct, it means that it's hypothesized that a construct, one construct, latent construct is made of several items, and those items are correlated with each other. Okay, and all these indicators are affected by one underlying factor. So the construct, let's say depression, is made of several items, and those items are correlated with each other. Or we can say that all these items are similarly affected by that construct, which is depression. And of course, the more difficult, the more abstract the construct, the more difficult it is to measure. I gave this example, social cohesion versus obesity. Again, obesity is very simple measure. It could be obesity in terms of classifying people based on their weight and height. It could be abdominal obesity or abdominal, I don't know what you call it, Maggie. Or it could be self-perception, whether you are obese or not, and you can show people some picture to see and then tell them to indicate how they portray themselves, or how they perceive themselves. But a very, very difficult one is like social cohesion. What is social cohesion? How would you think about social cohesion, and what is social cohesion? So based on how you define social cohesion, then you try to define indicators that could be as difficult. But this is where the difficulty comes when you deal with this kind of latent construct. So again, a scale, a measure, several items. We don't have to check every single question in a questionnaire whether they are valid or not. I would, items or measures that have been used often, continuously, age, gender, years of education, whether people have unemployment or not, whether they have retirement plan or not. But the most important element are those that require, that have a scale, and sometimes different measures, even if you're talking about exposure to war, whether you are capturing exposure to war or not, although these are things that are observable, but still they need some validation, not validation, testing, assessment, whether they are valid and reliable. So before using a scale or a set of measures, you have to always ask yourself whether the item actually represent the concept that you are after. So do you have enough item that represent, for instance, sociodemographic? Do you have enough item that represent the physical functioning of an older adult? So if you are relating physical functioning to mental health, so how you are defining physical functioning? So do you have scales comprehensively represent? So you need to cover the concept. And this is done usually by defining your concept and operationalizing the concept in terms of what is its dimension. And then examining when you have item under one concept is to see how much they are related to each other. So they should be associated, they should go together when they are under one concept. And then making sure that even if they are related, to what extent they actually represent the concept. So you can have a list of items that are very much correlated in terms of quantifying the correlation, but yet they don't represent the concept that you are after. And that's why we do examine very thoroughly and very closely scales that are specifically scales and tools that are made of several indicators. And most of the time, you as epidemiologists, you don't construct the scale. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You go and look for existing scale. But as you are looking for existing scale, you should always look for evidence that these scale have been validated. They have been tested for reliability. You can test the reliability in your own, of course, also in your own population of interest, but as well whether they have been validated in your context. They could have been validated in so many languages, but not among an Arab population, for instance. And this all validity, reliability, validating, developing scale, this is what we call psychometrics. So it's a field of study that I and Dr. Lillian have been exposed to because we were in a mental health department at Hopkins where mental health, I mean, this is really the hub for latent construct. And they are very much, they focus on psychometrics, which is construction and validation of measurement of instrument, and particularly focusing on those that are unobservable or latent construct. And of course, the validation and psychometric are important for the science. I mean, for reducing information bias and addressing misclassification and having accurate association, but also it's how you have to think about ethics, and you cannot go in and use a tool that's not that has some problem in terms of validity and reliability. So it's also related to ethic and practical utility. So what's our validity and reliability? Let's see.
Validity إنه it measures what it's intended to measure, and reliability that it measures it consistently. So if I give it today or in a month, it will most probably give me some other results.
Okay, can we answer these questions, 3 questions? Let's see. I don't know how I built it, but I built a question poll in Zoom, like in few minutes. So which of the two deals with measuring what you intend to measure? Which of the two? Okay, it's not the two. Okay. Okay, thank you. So I'd say the question is not well stated. So I think there's something wrong. So with measure is okay. So we're saying what is validity and what is reliability. So which one deals with measuring what you intend to measure?
The validity.
It's validity.
Okay. Let's see the second one. I thought it was much easier to do the poll on Zoom. I have to start practicing on WebEx. Which of these would you consider a latent construct? BMI, depression, income? Okay.
Depression.
Okay. What is meant by internal consistency of a scale? Hey, I see some variability. Okay, so how well its item correlate with each other? How consistent people responses of over time, or not sure? So you are seeing what people are writing, right?
No,
Oh, you're only
No,
answering.
doctor.
Okay, so I'm saying the
only your
result.
slide.
Okay, okay. So you are not copying from each other. Okay.
Doctor,
Yes,
can I ask a question in the
of course,
meantime?
please.
When we want to validate, for example, I'm gonna give you an example so that let's say I want to validate a questionnaire asking about something in the food, and then I can ask like about food intake using food frequency, etc. And then I do the measurements. So I want to validate a questionnaire that calculates a specific nutrient, let's say, and then I use a biomarker scale to validate my results, right? So
Yes.
I test it in the urine or the blood, or etc. How would we do it when we're using latent constructs? Because we don't
But
have
this
like
is not a latent construct.
I know, but I'm giving you
لا لا it's
what I
okay.
know about validation for
No,
nutrient, but
okay,
I'm
so
asking about if it's depression or how do we
this is
validate
we're coming into it. هلا we are
okay.
going to do an exercise, a full exercise on it, but I'll tell you from now. So when you have this kind of a scale where you have really latent construct, you expect that you try to see how items correlate with each other. So you usually, let's say, you know that depression relates to psychosomatic symptoms, to mood, to so many things, right? And then you try to see how these come together. So the item that relate to psychosomatic should correlate with each other, and the other ones should correlate with each other. And if depression or any scale have more than one dimension, I'll give you another example. A stress scale could be related to hopelessness, okay, and hopefulness and helplessness, right? So the items that talks about hopefulness should come together, the positive ones. So they cannot, the positive cannot correlate with the negative, right? So they should, we do factor analysis, meaning that we try to see which factors they come together, they vary with each other. And we expect that the one that that correlate with each other represent an underlying dimension. So, and I expect if I built a scale that has two dimensions, that when I do the analysis, which is called factor analysis, it will give me two factors. By looking at what are these indicators, you can give a name to that factor. For instance, so you have 10 indicators. Indicators are, I want to die, I feel useless, I lost interest in things, I can't concentrate, right? I don't feel, I feel detested, whatever. So these things should come together. So what are these? These are a form of helplessness.
Yes.
Okay. And then I see another one where I enjoy life, I like to do activity, etc. And then those should come together. And the factor, statistically, they correlate to each other. And then you look at them and say, this looks like hopefulness. And this is your expectation. If at the beginning, this is how you conceptualize. So that's why it's very important. The conceptualization is important. What you know from the literature about a certain concept is important. So your scale is good if it's able to come up with 2 or 3 factors, which are the 2 or 3 dimensions. In the dimension of depression, هو شو psychosomatic, mood, يعني, and then a third one, and death thoughts, right? يعني usually we say I'm not happy, I cry all the time, I'm in a bad mood, I'm in a low mood, I lost weight, I can't sleep. So this is the psychosomatic, so weight and sleep and overeating and undereating. So this is the psychosomatic. And then that you should have something which is related to, I think about dying, I don't feel, I don't want to live, I have suicidal thoughts, should come together. So these 3 should be in your scale. So you do something called factor analysis, and then you can do something called confirmatory factor analysis. You can do just exploring your scale, how the item come together. So what's meant by internal consistency of a scale is you read it a lot in an article, an EPI article, that after doing a study, they say the Cronbach alpha of that scale is 0.9, which means that the item of the scale correlate well together, which is good. it's only one measure of reliability. So what is meant by internal consistency is more related to reliability, but reliability of the scale itself internally, how the item correlate with each other. It's not about consistent over time. We look at it, and I don't know why other people did not put the poll, so I'll end the poll. And just share the results. It is so measuring what you intend to measure exactly. And if you want depression and you really you measure a scale that but reflect on depression with all its dimension, this is validity. And then when you consider a latent construct, this is depression. As we said, anything that's mental, social, or difficult to measure. And then how well the item correlate with each other is internal consistency. So again, so
Professor,
yes, yes,
when you say how the components correlate with each other, يعني it's like if they all are measuring
they
the
vary.
same.
When we say correlate, meaning vary. When we say correlation, how is correlation measured? مش by variable, variance. بتشوف how much they are correlated with each other. It's shared variance. So when they are correlated with each other, when one increase, the other one increase, the one decrease, and there's really strong association to each other in explaining one factor. So they come all together to explain one factor, to vary around one factor. It means that it is good. When you choose 10 measures, 10 are related to the negative sentiment of depression, they should be correlated with each other, right? They should not be correlated with being happy, enjoying. The other one is positive and positive symptom, positive emotion, and one is negative emotion. So all negative emotions should come together, positive emotions should come together. So that's internally, and within a scale, this is how you want to do it. So reliability and validity, just to differentiate, reliability is about how dependable is the measure. So you use it on one occasion, 2 occasions, 3 occasions on the same person, it gives you the same result. You use it, so it is stable. So it talks about stability. So it's precision. So it's a precise tool. It is a precise measure. So precision, repeatability, reproducibility, all is about reliability. Validity is more, a tool can be very reliable. I mean, I give it to you, you answer it, and you get 20 the first day, 20 the second day, 20 the third day, but yet it does not really reflect on satisfaction. It does not, but it is a reliable tool, but it does not reflect the truth. So it's not accurate. So it is the extent to which a measure provides an accurate representation of the property or concept being assessed. And we have, they vary to each, there's some kind of a relation or different way of seeing reliability and validity. Tools can be, so if you see it here, so I don't know, okay. So this is the true, okay, so this is the true value. So this is what we're trying to estimate, right? So, and then we collect measures, and then we get measures that are around the true values, right? So if they are around the true values and they are close to each other, so they are around the true value, it means what?
It
Valid
means
or
that you are
reliable.
measuring the right thing. It's valid.
If it's so, this is the truth, okay? If the measures are around the truth, is it validity or reliability?
Oh no, reliability.
Validity. There is no validity.
The true value, it's validity. Okay, it's more validity. Okay, so because this is okay, but if, and so on top of that, if the different values are next to each others,
It's
then they are
reliable.
reliable because when
reliable.
you're
Okay, so one
repeating it,
is
they're
this
giving the
one.
same.
Yes, exactly. So this one, the variation is not that strong, that high. So they do vary, but still they vary around each other. Okay, so it is, but around each other and next to the true value. So this is high validity and high reliability. So, and this is usually what we aim for most of the time. Here, okay, so altogether they are still around the true value to some extent, around the true value. This is the true value. However, you have really a wide variability of the measures. And this depicts low reliability. So this is, again, reliability when they are next to each other. So when you repeat it, it doesn't differ much. Okay, so here there's no much difference and it's next to the truth. Here you have really a good difference, but if you average, you're still around the true value. Here it's way away from the truth, but yet it's reliable. And I'll give you an example. So if I ask you a question on a simple question on are you present here? Okay, so I would like to see your contribution and your engagement in the course. Hello, in the online session. So what would be one indicator?
We all answered yes, but some of us might be distracted.
Answer, excellent, Noor. So you are all answered yes, right? And so I'm asking you if you are here and you say yes. So asking people if you are present, yes, or seeing you on the screen, right? This is a very reliable measure, right? And seeing you, so it's a measure that's your presence in the session, which for me is an indicator of engagement. One, is it true engagement? So it does not differ, of course, because if I ask you now, or if I ask you in 5 minutes and ask you, are you there? And you tell me yes, I open the screen, you are there. So it will not differ, right? It's very reliable. I mean, a question on, are you here, is a reliable. A question, I consider myself reliable. I look at the screen, I count, and I check who is present is a reliable measure of engagement. But is it really engagement? Does your presence in the classroom now, in the session, indicate engagement? What do you
No,
think?
it doesn't.
No, not really.
Not really, right? So not really. Yes, I'm able to to count you, to check. And if the administration tells me, how is the engagement, how is the attendance and engagement in your classes online, I would say the attendance is good. The engagement, if it's measured by attendance, I'm not sure. It's still good, the attendance, but I'm not sure I'm capturing engagement. All right. So just counting who's there and just looking at the screen, even if you open your screen, I cannot capture engagement. I can capture engagement by what?
By participation in the frequency.
By
Participation.
discussion.
Yes,
Or
maybe I can ask you a
putting,
question. Yes,
yes.
putting a chat. So in the chat, I would ask you, please answer the question in the chat, right? Do you agree?
Yes,
Do you
Dr.
agree with the
Akil.
Yes,
difference
doctor.
between, a measure can be very reliable, but it does not necessarily
Yes.
be valid. And if it's not, so that's okay, right? So now we're going to the second one. So we got into the low reliability. Do you think a measure that has a low reliability, like the last one, so anything that has low reliability, be valid?
No.
And
No.
in general, we don't want a measure that's have a high, a low reliability. Even if it is, so anything that varies a lot will not be a good measure for me. It will not give me the truth. So in Anna, for me, it cannot have a valid measure when it has a very high variation. So its reliability is very low. But I can have one that has high variability, low variable, it has high reliability but low validity. So this could happen, but this is, again, this is not something I want. So I want a measure that's mostly have good reliability and good validity. So I don't really want to compromise, but most of the important is, for me, is very important, is to check whether I'm measuring what I intend to measure, and then see how repeatable and how reproducible and how consistent is my measure. So it's not possible to have a measure that has low reliability and high validity. So this is, I was saying that, and how can you, if it varies so much, it cannot be valid when it varies so much, but it happens. So and this is particularly when a measure fluctuates very widely, it means that you are not getting the right measure. And this is what we have discussed. It's possible to have a measure that has high reliability but low validity. This is the example we gave. It's also possible to have low and low. This is something that's not on target and at the same time not consistent. So the two, they don't necessarily go hand in hand anyway. We want a measure that is can be reliable. We don't want a measure that is reliable but not valid. So it has to have some, most importantly, some reliability. So reliability.
Professor,
Yes.
when you say it's not possible to have, يعني we don't use it or it doesn't exist.
لا, it's not like, I mean, no, it doesn't make sense to have, you have a good one, but the items, they vary so much that they might vary, especially if you are talking about state, not trait. مثلا, if you're talking about people, and people vary from one day to the other. So you are not capturing really the concept. So better to have always some kind of reliability, some kind of dependability, where measures do not vary a lot.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, definitely.
Understanding reliability, as we said, the reliability is dependability, it's repeatability. Reliability is the extent to which the scale or the measure that you get is the true score, right? So this is the observed. So the observed score is the true score plus the measurement error, and we try as much as possible to minimize the measurement error. Both the true score is not known, and the measurement error is not known. So what we see is usually we do some kind of statistics that tell me how much this is reliable, and we'll come to it. But first, let's understand the three types of reliability. So three types of reliability are the internal consistency reliability, whereby the item, they correlate with each other, they are internally consistent. The inter-rater reliability, meaning when different raters use the same scale, they are producing, if they are trained in the same manner, they are producing the same result. So therefore, there is a reliability and similarity between the rater. And there is a retest reliability that we use a lot, which is when we, which means when we administer a different point in time, and of course close, having a short time period between testing 1 and testing 2, I'm having the same test. So 3-way, 4-way, I would remove the parallel form, but I will talk about it. So inter-observer reliability, as I said, the relationship between different coder using the same and for the same scale. Stability is test, retest, how much it is stable. If I administer today and then I use on the same people, I'll do it the following day. The parallel form, I'm going to talk about it quickly, but I'm not going to ponder on it a lot. So you have a scale. It is made of 10 items, and then you find one that's very parallel, almost the same scale, and you try to see how much these scale are correlate with each other. So two scale that I know that they are very identical, or there's something called split half. So you have a scale of 20. You ask the computer to randomly split it into two halves. And if all the items are under one dimension or even under 2 dimension, when you randomly split it in two halves, the two halves should correlate with each other. So this is, we call it split half reliability. I did not put it here. and the internal reliability, which deals how much, as I said, the item correlate with each other for the same variable. So how can I measure? So that all the reliabilities, they have a statistical quantity, so I can measure them and see how good they are. So we test the homogeneity of the item that make up of scale. So are they measuring the same thing consistently? How well they are associated with each other? So the most common one used is Crumbach alpha. It's a correlation. It's a correlation coefficient that we use specifically for a scale that is where the items are on a continuous scale or a Likert scale. And then in Crumbach alpha, similar to any correlation coefficient, so it's from 0 to 1, and the higher, the better. And there are other type of correlation coefficient, Kuder-Richardson. So this is when my items are binary. So I have 10 items for depression, but the way they are measured are you happy? Yes, no. Did you think about this? Yes, no. So they are binary compared to others that are more of a Likert scale or more as continuous. So we use the KR20, and there are other type which are intra-class correlation, which also measure correlation between the items, or split half reliability. Again, I ask the computer, I'll show you in SPSS, there is one of the command in SPSS, it's called reliability actually, and one of the reliability measures is split half reliability. So again, the statistical tool program divided into several halves, equal halves, and then does the correlation between two these halves. And again, a correlation close to 1 would be a good internal consistency scale. The inter-rater reliability is how consistent the data are between raters. Okay, so to tell me, okay, how do I do it? So do I do this? Usually, so when you collect your data in any type of study, you can check the internal consistency of your study, the scale, your scale that you have used. Of course, when you pick up the scale, you check what they have reported on its internal consistency. But when you collect the data, you can report on the internal consistency of your scale in your population. So that's done after you collect the data. Another way to do it, to check or at least to make sure that your data is of good quality, your information of good quality, is as you are doing your study, you collect data on, let's say, you have already done part of your sample by one interviewer. While doing some of your interview, you can send another interviewer with this investigator, and both of them will take note. Both of them will put the answers. Or you collect the data today, and then you send another rater, and then this rater, after 1 day, can again ask some question. And then you compare the answer, and you get something called correlation coefficient or kappa statistics. Kappa statistics is just the percent agreement between the two observers. And this, like, if we have question on, let's say, educated, not educated, so we want to see how much there is an agreement. It means proportion of both rater that have put, both of them, they put educated, and both of them, they put non-educated. So just the agreement. And it can be either percent agreement or kappa statistics, which gives you agreement beyond chance. So this is important to do, and this is important to report in at the end of your study, that I've done inter-rater reliability, I checked the internal consistency, and both of them were satisfactory. So this is one way to do it. And it could be just Pearson correlation for continuous measure. Yani, we send a trainer trained in the same way on taking, for instance, blood pressure. We send another trainer the second day, another investigator, and this person maybe the same day or at the end of the day, and then they take the same measurement on the same person, and we measure whether these are correlated by simple Pearson correlation. Again, Pearson correlation is from 0 to 1, the higher the Pearson correlation, the higher the reliability of your measure. The second one is your test-retest. This is a bit tricky because it depends on actually what you are measuring. Are you measuring a rate or a state? Are you able to measure to come back? When would you come back to do the retest? After how many days? Because the longer it takes, the more likely that your test results are going to change. So you have to make sure that your retest is done within at least acceptable time period, so you can at least say that the retest is good, we have high reliability, and we have high correlation between test 1 and test 2. Again, this is not done when you are conducting your EPI study. When you are validating a scale, this is one important step in validating the scale. So how we validate a scale? You build a scale, right? You do it, for instance, you take 10 people, you decide that you want to have 100 people, for instance, that you want to test the scale on. You start with 10 people, and then those 10 people, you take their approval to come back in 3 days or in 1 week to do a retest. And then those same people, the 10 or the 20, you send again the same rater, they administer the same questionnaire or the same scale, and you compare the result of test 1 and test 2. So this is the retest reliability. So again, time interval is important. So you don't want to have a long period of time between time 1 and time 2. And then always think about whether the construct changes over time. So with people now, I would worry about, for instance, retest and a very volatile situation, right? Like now, what's happening right now, it's very volatile. We don't know what's going to happen. You might be happy now, and you might be better and worse in a week time, depending on the event, right? So if I want to check whether my scale is capturing your mental well-being, it's not the best time to do a retest, right? I don't know how much you are fluctuating, and if you are fluctuating as much as I'm fluctuating. I'll give you a good example of that, the issue of fluctuating. 2006, where you were born, right? Do you remember the 2006 war? Anyone remember? I don't know. You were really
Yes,
very
doctor.
Yes,
very
doctor.
young.
Yes,
I
yes,
was
Yes,
like
I
5 years
remember.
old.
Yes, you were very, very young.
Mariam, you
So,
haven't been born? Mariam, you were born
No,
at
I
that
remember
time?
it
No,
clearly.
I was born, but I was like 2.
so so you were like in the 2000s. So this is like my kid, 2002, 2003. So you're young, 1999, whatever, but still you were very. So 2006 was a 30-day invasion, and then it was. Oh my God! What it was very. The part of southern suburb was destroyed. Massive displacement to the Mount Lebanon, to the north, to Bekaa. Many of the bridges were hit, were targeted, and it was terrible. But at the same time, there was a lot of hopefulness. And every time at the time when Nasrallah was alive, right? So every time there was like a hit against Israel, or like a victory in a particular area. So people would really be, at one point in time, people are really depressed, are desperate. And then you go and collect data on psychological well-being of people. And then people are happy. Why? Because they heard there's a lot of solidarity. There's the speech. The speech of Nasrallah brought a lot of hopefulness and strength to the people. So if you are to retest reliability, it's actually the worst, because people changed, and then we've seen like psychological well-being changes with victory, changes with this particular event, war event, so that you can't even know whether how much reliable this is at this point in time. So when you have these kind of volatile situations, so again, reliability is you use correlation scores. And the correlation scores usually are, general rule is that if they are between 0.7 to 0.9, this is very good. Cronbach alpha, as I said, is another correlation score. All the one that I mentioned are correlation score. And then we have a kappa. Kappa could be 100% agreement, 10%, 20%, etc. I mean, the closer to 100 or to 1, the better. And less than 50, it's unacceptable. And usually you don't want this kind of scale or this kind of measure. And the score, of course, you always have to compare, to think about when you are using what's happening compared to what's in the literature. So previous research, what type of respondent you are talking about. And a general rule in reliability, that's something you need to keep always in mind, is that as you increase the number of items or indicator, your reliability improves. So more indicators, more items, better reliability. So, or the greater chance for acceptable reliability. So the larger the number of items making up a scale, the greater the chance for acceptable acceptable reliability. How in general we enhance reliability? If we're talking about inter-rater reliability, it means we have to have standardized method, right? Standardized method, protocol, what we call SOPs, standard of operation, manual of operation. So we put specific instructions. So when you put specific instruction, the way the data will be collected using the same way, the same method, consistently, and therefore you can improve on your reliability, meaning that the consistency of the measure that you are getting. When you calibrate, calibration ensures good reliability. It does not ensure the validity at all, ensure the consistency and dependability of the event. Training of staff is very important. Refining the instrument. It starts with your conceptualization and your operationalization of your construct, and then the clearer the question, the clearer the better. So if you have those ambiguous question, the answer would not be correct, and that's why when you go back to the same person, if the question was not clear from the beginning, the answer would depend on the person's perception at that time. So that's why there's something called cognitive interviewing that we do again before using the questionnaire in its final format. So cognitive interviewing is randomly selecting some items from different domains of your questionnaire, and then go to the field, pick up people who look like your participant, but who will not be in your sample. So if let's say I know the concierge in my building, who's older adult, who will unlikely be in my sample because he's not like a permanent resident of that building. And then I take the sample of item. It's a sample of item. For instance, a question that's, do you have enough support from your family? And then I ask this person, how do you understand this question? What do you mean? And do you know what we mean by this question? So do you have support from your family? Can be understood differently from different people. This is not a good question, right? And it could be sometimes emotionally is not a good question. Some people are a little bit, they don't answer you because emotionally it's a lot of loaded emotionally, or it's ambiguous. What's support? What is support in the family? Or is it so? Is your total income sufficient for your need, for your basic need? So you go, the basic need for one person is not as the basic need for another person, unless I specify that basic need is food, medication, health, and whatever. Okay, so it's very important again is to remove the ambiguity of your questionnaire. And one way to do it, if you want to be very professional, is to do some cognitive interviewing. Cognitive interviewing is taking a group, maybe 20, 30, take samples of items, go to them and ask them, see how they are reacting, to the question and see what do they understand from the question and why they answered this way, at least to understand whether you need to improve on the questions or not. Automating the instrument is important. Why? Because it removes, of course, the human error. So if so people will not put a wrong answer. I think we failed to mention at the beginning that information bias can be also human error while entering the data or while answering. So how much you earn, if you're not clear about the dollars per month or Lebanese pound per year, per month, etc. Sometimes it does produce some error. So better when it is automated and using a computer-assisted program rather than a paper or pencil, or instead of them inputting the number, there will be all drop-down menu. And of course, repetition of measurement does enhance reliability. So specifically for anthropometric measure, and maybe Maggie can tell us because she's done a lot on nutrition. We always take specifically for blood pressure and weight sometimes, and there's another measure that we take more than once, maybe at the beginning of the interview, at the end, and then we average. Sometimes we take 3 measures for weight and height. We take 3 measures for blood pressure, just to improve on the reliability.
Doctor?
So yes.
There is also the STEPS survey, like they took the measurement 3 times, like every 5 minutes they took like the measurements for the biomarkers.
I don't know that. Is that Maggie? So it's every what, Palestine?
Like every couple of minutes, like 3 minutes.
They take a biomarker? What kind of biomarker?
Like, yeah, and not biomarker, sorry, like blood pressure, sorry.
Oh, wow.
I mean, like
Maggie would know maybe, or Rula, I don't know. So in one
Yes,
interview,
doctor.
every 2-3 minutes, they take blood pressure, the blood pressure.
I'm not sure. Maybe she meant take 3 values and average them.
This is what I know.
Yeah.
I know that we take
Like-
3 values, but not every 2 minutes, because those interviews, they last for 2 hours or 1 hour and a half, usually.
Like 10 minutes.
It actually depends on the type of if we see the person more than once, we would take their measurements several times and then do but if we're seeing them only one time, and for example, if I'm in the field and I want to take their measurements, what we can do is if we're like 2 interviewers, this is what happened with us. If we're 2 or 3 interviewers and together and we are interviewing someone and we want to take their anthropometric measurements, each one of us as a dietitian would take the measurement. So we will have 3 measurements and then we will take if we measure the height, so make sure that we all have the same measurement or at least like very similar values.
Okay. Yeah, that's correct. So for us, for instance, we have a protocol. Actually, you have to follow a protocol. So the protocol, and most of the time it says how they should be aware, how they should be when you measure them, they should be seated. They should be like if it's done when you begin, then after maybe 10 minutes. So all depends actually on the protocol. So there should be a manual of operation that's very clear, based on which all the interviewers are trained, and then they do a soft launch of the project. We observe them how they're doing it, and if there is any mistake, we correct them. And this is how we improve and enhance reliability. Proper training, good number of items of the questionnaire, making sure that people understand the question, it's not ambiguous, and try to minimize as much as possible error that comes from the interviewer himself or herself. Okay, and then how we test it? We tested through internal consistency, we tested through retest, we tested through inter-rater reliability, and we can do those parallel form or split half once we get the data. So the split half and the internal consistency are done after you collect all the data on your data set, and anything else which is inter-rater or test retest are done, inserted, are nested within your project. So as you are doing the project, you can allocate some time, some step for the test retest to later document it in your report, what you've done. And I know that it's 10:23. Let me just go over quickly through validity. So validity, as we said, does the measure or does the construct or whatever scale measure what it intends to measure? So is it measuring correctly the latent construct? So the latent construct, that's the construct that is unobservable, that is abstract. So is it really measuring it? So how accurate is the tool that we are interested in? So that is this group of measure what they're supposed to measure. Two, is it accurate? And how good is in separating people with and without the condition in question? So these are three questions because this helps us understand the different types of validity. Have you seen these before? At least not in the research method, right? Were they discussed in the research method?
Yes, they were a little.
We've seen that.
So Dr. Mumtaz gave this validity. Who gave this validity?
Dr. Mumtaz, yes.
Oh, okay. Then it was not actually part of the one before. So this year she gave it. So you're comfortable. So for those who have, so you all took it? So it's just like a reinforcement. You should have told me, Anala, I'm not. Okay.
I don't
No, we
think
didn't
it
take
was
it that much detail. Yeah,
detailed.
not as much
Yes,
as you're giving
detailed.
it. Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. Anyway, I'm going to think about it as just reinforcing what you have taken. By the way, and specifically for MS, when you do your comprehensive exam, and of course for MPH, when as you are developing your tools, both of you, because you have API skills, validity and reliability are very important aspect of like when we talk about confounding, association, mediation, moderation, etc. Validity and reliability are the heart of measurement. And API is a measurement. API is quantitative. So that's why really these are very important issues that you need to keep in mind as you develop and as you criticize other people's work quantitatively. So again, type of validity. So we have type of reliability, inter-rater, internal consistency, but we have type of validity that goes from the weakest type to the strongest type, which gives the strongest evidence for validity. So the face validity is by face value. So this is an evaluation that the item. So you look at the item and you ask people who are going to answer the item. You ask them about how good they are, how it's like this is the cognitive interviewing. The cognitive interviewing actually tells you when you do it is how much the people are understanding your item. Okay, how good they are. So by face value, are you capturing support? By face value, are you capturing satisfaction or income insufficiency, so on and so forth? So it's more you take it from the measurement users. Okay, so people who are going to use this measurement, and it does not have any statistical test. So no statistical test is required. It's simply does it appear like it measures what it's supposed to measure? Again, it is it's the first level, and sometimes an article you read that this tool have proven to have good face validity, but this is really the weakest type of validity, so it's limited aspect. And it is more of content validity, but the measurement user will not be able to judge whether this is good or not, but at least it can give you feedback on whether they understand, whether it's good for them. It really capture what you tell them that it will capture. And you go to them and you say, I want to ask you about your challenges in online learning. And then you ask a question and then you ask them, what do you think about the question? And then they tell you, but you did not capture really what I'm suffering from. You did not ask me the question that you should ask me about challenges on online. So it means that doesn't have face validity. So of course it has to have minimum face validity because it will definitely improve. appropriate reading level. We think about clarity, response option. That's why I'm saying it's the respondent that check this out. And the best way is to do the cognitive interviewing. Content is most scale, they capture dimension of a concept. And therefore, you need to check whether your scale, your measure, capture all aspect or all concept or all dimension, underlying dimension of your scale. So who would be the proper, the person who would best judge that has content validity? Most likely is the people who have the content expert, right? So they might not be psychometrician, they might not be epidemiologists, they might not be quantitative researcher, but you show your scale of depression to a psychiatrist will tell you whether it has content validity, whether you capture everything, because psychiatrists know all the dimension of depression and will tell you, I think you missed to ask about. So expert in the field can give you that element or that proof whether you have content validity. So again, assurance are based upon a theoretical item generation. So whether you read in the literature that depression has several dimensions, you check your scale or a scale that people have done, and you see that some items are missing, or some judging effort by people who are expert in the field. So again, this does not have any statistical tool. So we don't come up or calculate any statistical test to that. But what we do is usually we produce a large number of items, and then you bring in, as you said, you bring an expert, again, sometimes lay and content expert, who will evaluate your pool item, your item pool, and then say whether you have captured all the construct and the dimension. So the construct and all its dimension. This is what you need to know about it. And then people come up with a revised version, and that would comprehensively represent. So starting from criterion, so we have two main validity type that we use to capture the validity and capture and measure validity are criterion validity and construct validity. And I think I'll leave them to the practical session to continue. Please have a look at them. I'm going to leave you again, not this week, maybe the end of the week, some slides on validation. An exercise on validation that we will solve together when we continue. So we continue and we solve together on validation. And I will definitely have a chance to explain to you how we run a validation study, because validation is not about only validating things that you do for an observational study, is actually doing and getting funding to validate a tool. And we'll address this as well. Okay.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Okay, let's see. But can I just
Thank
check
you, Doctor.
Thank you.
I need to check the chat that I'm not seeing. Okay, 1 second, please.
Professor, I think there's a problem because the Zoom doesn't allow us to type anything in the chat. I don't know why.
Okay, but I thought that there were.
Yes, Abdurrahman, you have to press invite. Then you choose like only the host. You can send a message to the host.
Oh yeah, but no, it's not a group like for the whole meeting. It's only
Okay, so
for the host.
Palestine have already chat mics. Thank you, Professor. Thank you. But I just wanted to see what are in the chat. So there are no specific messages in the chat. So otherwise, I'll see you on Thursday. So please, for Thursday, you need to go over the survival. Check. So you have now the cohort analysis, and I left you a recording of the cohort analysis. It's not a long one. The survival is a VOP that's only like 43 or 45 minutes. Again, it's short. It goes through every slide. So I hope it's useful. And all the applications going to be on SPSS and some data. And please read the article ahead of time. I think it will be on sleep apnea obstructive sleep apnea and death or stroke. And these are, I've used some of the result to illustrate survival in my lecture. Okay. All right.
Good deal, doctor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Stay
doctor.
safe,
See
stay
you
well.
Thursday.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye.